Welcome to the November gardening calendar and to-do list. I'm so excited to jump into this month because this is the month of transition for a lot of people, regardless if you're in USDA Zone 3 or you're in USDA Zone 10 or 11. This is a really interesting month of transition, and I think it's really important in November and December because of various holidays to be aware of the most important things in our garden, in our food forest, with our livestock, because we want to be able to focus on people and on family. Let's be honest, the next couple months, we don't want to have to be overwhelmed outside. So I think being really organized in the month of November, going into December and through the holidays is a really important component that's going to set us up to win once the holidays are over. So before we jump into the questions that have been supplied by our Patreon community this month, I want to hit on the top 3 things for each of the growing zone areas that I would recommend doing in your garden or food forest this month if you can't do anything else. Now, obviously on permaculturefx.com, we have a free gardening calendar that is very extensive. It divides it up into garden, greenhouse, animals and livestock around the house, in the food forest, etc. But if you're to take those lists and boil them down and say, Chris, what are the top 3 things? If I can't do that whole list, what do I need to do this month to still be able to win? These are those things. So usually what I like to do is break them up into 2 separate zone areas. So USDA zones 3 through 8 is our more cold temperate climate. You're getting winters, you're getting a hard frost. And then USDA zones 9 through 11, where there's little to no frost at all. It's our tropical, subtropical, or dry arid climates. Now, I realize that in every one of those individual growing zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are nuances that are very unique, very specific to your growing zone. But by grouping them into those 2 areas, we get the broad brushstrokes to be able to see what are the general things that need to be done in a really concise and organized way. And then you can always rely on your local extension offices or a local resource to get those nuances. So consider this kind of like the Bob Ross painting where you've got your happy little tree over here, a nice little rock to keep them company. Now, if you want individual pine needles on that happy little tree, go to a local resource. But if you want to know where to put that pine tree, where to put the happy little rock or the stream coming through, this is your broad brushstroke Bob Ross version. So let's jump in. If you are from USDA zones 3 through 8, here are the top 3 things that I would recommend doing this month. Now, I can say that I've had a lot of experience in those zones because I grew up in Michigan where it is just crazy butt cold, and then spent 15 plus years in Kansas City, Missouri, and even a little bit on the Kansas side. So I'm very familiar with cold. I spent obviously the last quite a few years here in Florida, so in zone 9B, 10A, kind of area. So I love the nuances of the growing zones. So cold people, USDA zones 3 through 8. First and foremost, enter into rest. It is okay. It is right for you to rest. It is right for you to take a Sabbath. Nature is modeling for you right now what you should be doing. Going dormant on the top, the surface level productivity is kind of minimizing. There's still a lot of growth taking place below the ground. Even though your fruit trees are not putting out leaves, the roots are still active. They're interacting with mycorrhizal fungi, with bacteria. It's establishing a root system to bring balance to your food forest and to the system. So mimic what nature is doing. When I look at my chickens, for example, which I love to do, when I look at chickens this time of year, I'm showing you my little rooster on my cup. Chickens this time of year are molting. And so what is interesting to me is their bodies know a natural rhythm. So right now they are losing feathers to, get their new winter feathers in. And those old feathers that they're losing, now think about what feathers are made of. Primarily calcium, B vitamins, and protein. So their bodies need a lot of calcium, B vitamins, and protein to refresh those feathers. Now, what's also happening with chickens, at the same time that they're molting and getting new feathers, their egg laying is dropping off. They're almost not laying at all for a month or 2 or 3 in the wintertime. Here's why. Their eggs are also made of calcium, B vitamins, and protein. So their bodies know that when they're repairing their feathers, they need to decrease their laying time and their amount of eggs that they're producing because their body needs those extra resources. Their body goes into a natural rest mode so that it can repair. Pretty intelligent design, I would say. So first of all, don't force your chickens to lay eggs when they shouldn't be laying eggs. They need to be focused on resting. Secondly, let them rest. Let them recuperate. Let them rejuvenate. Let them repair their bodies. They will live longer, healthier, happier, more resilient lives if you let that natural rhythm take place. So if you're in USDA zones 3 through 8, watch your chickens and do the same thing. Rest. Rest, 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 rest. So second thing that I would be doing in USDA zones 3 through 8, finish covering up your soil. So if you have areas that have hard stem plants, remember the phrase that I often say, if it's a hard stem plant, hard stem mulch, soft stem plant, soft stem mulch. So for your fruit trees, berry bushes, nut trees, your forests that have hard stems or stalks, you're using a hard mulch, wood chips. If it's a soft stem, so it's your annual vegetables, your perennial wildflowers, that sort of thing, use soft stem mulches. So use grass clippings, use leaves, use hay, use straw, all of that soft stem stuff. The nerdy scientific reason is that hard stem plants, your fruit trees, berry bushes, that sort of thing, they like a fungally dominated soil, which is what wood chips provide. Soft stem plants prefer a bacterially dominated soil, which is what rotting leaves, straw, grass clippings are going to produce. So that's the kind of nerdy reason why. Sorry, coffee break. If you were listening just through your headphones, you're wondering why the weird pause. It's because I'm drinking coffee. Now get off me. So third thing that I would do in USDA zones 3 through 8 is connect kids to nature the next 2 months. There's not a lot to do outside. So when you're focusing on indoors, you're focusing on family, you're focusing on the neighbor kids. They don't even have to be your biological kiddos, but you have neighbors. You have the kids that are riding by on their bikes. Provide ways for kiddos to interact with nature because they are the stewards of the food forest and garden tomorrow. So if you want to ensure a 100-year view for your food forest, you better be thinking about the next generation. So get the kids out, go to apple orchards, go to hay rides, do corn mazes, go to the pumpkin patches, go spend time outside. Find ways to bring the outside in, whether it's, dipping fall leaves in beeswax to preserve the color and decorating your Thanksgiving table with it, or whatever it happens to be. Find ways this fall and winter to create wonder and excitement for kids. You can probably see maybe behind me my bird feeding station from Wild Birds Unlimited. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different, 8, I don't know. I have a lot of different feeders that are right outside the window because I love sipping my morning coffee looking outside at the wild songbirds because it provides visual interest. Now, if you want more info on how do you feed wild songbirds, in your area, the types of feeders, the type of bird seed, what birds is it going to attract, there's a whole separate class on that for those of you that are Patreon members. If you're not a Patreon member, there is a free 7-day trial and you can binge watch as much as you want and just cancel and it's free. So connect kids to nature would be my third recommendation anyway for this month. So if you're in USDA zones 3 through 8, that's your kind of 3-item list to be able to focus on, hit it really hard the next month. If you're in USDA zones 9 through 11, it is a little bit different. So the first thing is I would start putting your food forest to sleep. It's the end of the food forest season for the most part. There's a few things that are still producing. But by and large, food forest season is coming to an end. So when you're thinking of putting your food forest to sleep, first think about soil. Cover the soil, refresh your wood chips, refresh your mulch. Obviously, keep it away from the stems. You don't want it rotting the trunk of your trees. You want to keep that root flare nice and exposed. That's going to protect your roots for the winter. But you also need to think about what's going on above the ground. This is your time to prevent disease and bacterial infections for next year. So if you don't want to deal with them next year, treat things now when things are going into dormancy. So you're thinking of probiotic sprays like BioAg, or making your own probiotic sprays using things like JDAM or Korean farming. Think about using a neem oil, because that neem oil can help kill some of the eggs of the insects that are going to be wintering over in the food forest. So if you're wanting to do proactive disease control, this is your time. So you're thinking mulch, you're thinking probiotics, and then the last thing with the food forest going to sleep, stop amending. So no more adding nutrients, no more minerals now. From now until the end of February, let nature run its course. Let the wood chips decompose, let it create compost, let the roots become active. Let the top of the trees start going dormant. It is good for them to rest. It is good for those trees to go to sleep. So no more amending, no more fertilizing until the end of February. So the second thing that I would be doing in USDA zones 9 through 11 is keep feeding your annual vegetable gardens. So you're using a lot more nitrogen. You're keeping the soil covered. If you don't want to buy hay or straw, use grass clippings. Like mow your yard, bag it up, and put those grass clippings on. Again, always keep it away from the little base of the plants themselves. Let the roots breathe. Use your leaf clippings. I mean, this is a great time of year no matter where you are. When the neighbors put out their leaves in bags, go get them. Put them in a back corner, let them rot. Run them over a couple times with a lawnmower. Use them on your annual vegetable beds. Phenomenal source of compost and nutrients that other people are getting rid of. It's their trash as your food forest treasure. So the third thing that I would do in USDA zones 9 through 11 is plant dormant fruit trees now. So think of things that are going to be blooming in the springtime. So this is your figs, your mulberries, your peaches, your pear, your plum, nectarines, persimmons, loquats. Those are all very, very safe to plant November, December, January. So don't think that just because it's winter, you can't do fruit trees. Now, you should not do really tropical things. So no mangoes, no avocados. I don't care what the local nursery tells you. Please do not plant them right now. That's just not a smart move. If you want to buy them, that's fine. Upsize the pot so you can protect them, let them fill into the new pot, and then wait until Easter time and then give them a plant. But right now, still do figs, do loquats, do mulberries, do persimmon, do peach, do plum, do pear, do nectarine, all things dormant. Go ahead and get those in the ground. This is my last little sip for a minute. So those are the three things I'd be doing for USDA zones 9 through 11. Now, when we look at that full list, I know that can seem to be a lot when you read it on the website. You know, you get a really long to-do list. But if you want to boil it down to those three things, USDA zones 3 through 8, it's enter rest, finish covering up your soil, and connect kids to nature. If you're in USDA zones 9 through 11, it's put your food forest to sleep, keep feeding your annual vegetables and your annual vegetable gardens, and then plant your dormant fruit trees. So now let's get into the Q&A. This is a little bit of the nitty-gritty for the month. So the questions that I'm going to be referencing all come from our Patreon community. So if you're not familiar with Patreon, it is a resource where content creators or teachers or educators can put classes and content out there for people that want to go a little bit deeper. I do not think it is beneficial to put everything out on YouTube for free. It's like prostituting information. If you want good information, go to a university, go to your gardening center, go to your local extension office, join a Patreon group that you can go deeper in a highly educational context and get into the nitty-gritty details and ask questions of a community that actually knows what they're talking about. This is not like a Facebook group. I'm so done with Facebook groups and the drama that goes into the Facebook groups. I almost can't even go in the rooms anymore because of the amount of drama. So that is why I enjoy the Patreon. If you want to give it a shot, there's a free 7-day trial that you can binge watch as much as you like. See if it's a good fit for you. If it is, keep going. If it's not, cancel, whatever. So let's jump into these awesome questions that are provided by the patrons this month. So question number one is, I have a lot of fig trees this year. A lot of the figs are splitting for this person. Why are they splitting and what can I do to prevent this? So first of all, some varieties of figs are going to split a lot easier than others. So for example, brown turkey fig, that's going to be one of the worst ones for splitting. However, it is very high yield. So even though they split, there's so many, you don't have to worry about it quite as much. Second thing to consider is most of the reason they're splitting is water inconsistencies. So it's like tomatoes in the annual vegetable garden. So when you have a lot of water, no water, a lot of water, no water, tomatoes are going to split. So figs are going to be exactly the same way. So this year has been really bad for fig splitting because we had that hurricane that brought in 14 inches of water, like in certain areas like ours. A lot of the figs just split. So you're not going to really be able to prevent that a lot. The only way to kind of curb it a little bit, and that's really the best that you can do, is water them once or twice, the trees once or twice during the week to give them adequate moisture so they're not totally drying out. So that's really about the only thing that you can do. That is just the nature of the beast. Now, if you want varieties that are going to split a little bit less, Celeste is a great one. Any of the white figs are a little bit less prone to split, or the green figs. And then also, what was the other one? Olympia. Even though Olympia or the Olympian fig is a lot bigger, it doesn't seem to split as much for me. The skin is a little bit tougher, but Celeste I think is a great one as far as variety wise to avoid as much of the splitting. Question number 2. How do I winterize my baby moringa trees? This person has a lot of them that are growing in pots that may or may not be hardened off yet. So what do I do to get them ready for the winter? So I would probably keep them in the pots for the winter. If they're above probably 14 inches tall, upsize their pot so they've got enough room to let that taproot grow. Once a moringa taproot starts to curl around, it's not going to develop a proper taproot. So I would upsize the pot if you're in doubt. Second thing that I would do is provide a high potassium. That's the third number on the NPK number scale. High potassium fertilizer, because that's going to help with root production and hardening off. So I used to do bonsai trees a lot, and that's what we would use going into the winter months to be able to harden off any of the new growth to prevent it from dying off over the winter. And then third thing that I would do to get your moringa trees ready would be to really let them dry out in between waterings. So to the point where even the trees kind of faint a little bit or they look a little bit wilted, let them dry out a little bit, because that's going to force those branches that are new and green to harden off. So those are the 3 things I would do. High potassium, dry them out for a couple of days, get them ready for the winter. Question number 3, also a moringa question. This person is wondering, both for animals and for humans, is moringa safe to use during pregnancy? They have a friend who lives in a country where moringas are native, and they often will stop feeding people moringas when they're pregnant. So yes and no. I would say before I even answer that question, I'm not here to tell you anything that is going to prevent disease or diagnose or cure a disease. I would always talk to your family care physician or your primary doctor first and make sure that it's okay for you, your pregnancy, for your needs individually. Now, that being said, I am a master herbalist and I love that world. So I would say by and large, moringas are safe for consumption for animals and for humans during pregnancy, except for the bark, the stems, and the flowers. The bark, the stems, and the flowers do have certain chemical constituents, phytonutrients, that can cause the uterus to contract in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So beginning of pregnancy, not as much of a worry, but as you kind of near toward those later trimesters, they could cause the uterus to contract. The leaves, however, do not have that same phytonutrient, so it's not nearly the concern if you're just consuming the leaves or moringa powder, because that's primarily using the leaves and the smaller stems. Now, where moringa can be very, very beneficial for animals or for women, humans that are pregnant, is that it provides a high amount of minerals that's going to fortify calcium, magnesium, potassium. Also has a lot of iron for the blood. So that's going to help prevent anemia. So there are a lot of benefits to the moringa powder for pregnancy. So again, it does depend. Always talk to a family care physician first, and they can bring up the moringa plant profile to determine if it's going to be safe for you and your pregnancy. As far as for animals, I let animals consume it pregnant, not pregnant, feeding with milk production or not, doesn't matter. I'm continually giving them moringa. Number 4 is kind of a pregnancy related question. What could I add to my personal diet from the food forest? I am breastfeeding. So I'm not a woman. So I'm telling you this as a master herbalist, as someone who has a lot of experience in the dietary and herbalist world. So I would say if I were pregnant, if I were breastfeeding, and this is also what I do for animals and livestock, is katuk. Number 1, katuk. Katuk is very high in minerals, very high in calcium. The phytonutrients can help stimulate milk production. So for livestock, for example, we use this to increase milk production in goats, in sheep, in cows. So very, very good for increasing milk production. And it's very good to help animals, whether that's applicable for humans, I'll let you determine. It also helps prevent mastitis or treat mastitis in animals. So I would say katuk is the first thing that I'm going to be feeding from the food forest. Moringa is probably my second choice of things to feed from the food forest. And then pseudo food forest, I would say from the garden, legumes, beans, peas, and legumes, lots of protein, because breastfeeding requires a lot of protein, a lot of calcium. You want to be supplementing that. And then last but not least, by any means, eggs, the whole egg, the yolk, and the whites together, not the shells, but the yolks and white together are really going to give you a whole superfood that has amino acids, it has protein, it has calcium, it has B vitamins, it has folic acid and folates, all the things needed for healthy milk production and breastfeeding. So those are the things that I would consider. But obviously, if any of those are new to you, talk to your family care physician first. Number 5 is how to maintain Mexican sunflower. Let me read this question in depth. We regularly cut and feed our livestock with Mexican sunflower, and they're using both the Tithionia diversifolia and Tithionia rotundifolia, just so you know, and Napier grass. Some of the Napier and Mexican are quite tall. They're regrowing after being cut. Same with the Mexican sunflower. Should we be doing anything other than specific pruning down of those plants as we go through the winter? So it depends. If you're wanting to use Mexican sunflower and Napier grass to protect young or sensitive fruit trees, no more pruning. Let them go all the way through the winter, because you want that green growth to be a wind barrier and a frost barrier to protect your fruit trees. If you're using it as animal forage and fodder, though, it's a little bit different. Yes, definitely be pruning. Now, those animals are not, for the most part, going to be eating the hard woody stems. So this is the time of year, if it's animal forage and fodder, cut it really, really low. Really, really low. Mexican sunflower, specifically the tall yellow varieties, can get very aggressive, very opportunistic in the food forest. So they do need to be maintained. Mexican sunflower is not one that you just want to let go and do its thing for 5 or 10 years. If you come back after 5 years, it's going to be massive. It's going to be taking over some of your food forest areas. Mexican sunflower is intended to be chop and drop many, many times a year if you can. So for the most part, this is the time of year. Cut it down to 6 inches, like really, really cut it back. And then do root divisions, get your shovel in there, do root cuttings, and spread that Mexican sunflower where you want it to be for the next growing season. So there's other things that are going to be better for forage and fodder over the winter months, specifically things like Napier, mulberry, vetiver grasses, that sort of thing, fakahatchee grass that are going to be really good for forage and fodder over the winter months. The Mexican sunflower, not as much, but this is a great time to maintain that. Napier grass, same thing, is they're going to be dying back a lot, so this is your maintenance season. So November and December, cut them back to 6-8 inches tall, root divisions, get them where they needed to go, so you're propagating and getting ready for the next season. Great time to share those divisions with other people. Question number 6, is there a way to save trees or their roots from water damage done after the flooding? For example, the last hurricane that came through. That's a hard one. It's better to be on the proactive end. So if you're in a flood prone area, way better to build up and plant on mounds like hugel mounds that are going to be able to dry out a little bit faster. If you're on the problem solving end of that spectrum, and you've got trees that are really, really suffering, you can buy a concentrated hydrogen peroxide or just use the one from the store. And by adding that into water, that hydrogen peroxide will deliver hydrogen and oxygen molecules to the roots, and it can help prevent and treat root rot. That's really what you're fighting right now in those flood prone zones is root rot. And so I would say cut off anything that's rotting. If you've got banana plants, for example, that the tops are rotting off, cut them off. Don't let them rot all the way down and kill your culm. Cut them off, stop it where it's at, and then use hydrogen peroxide to treat it. Help them dry out as fast as you can. Dig a little trench so you can get that water away from the base of the plant. Because for bananas, for example, if the top of them are dying off, the culm is probably still alive. So it's probably still going to come back. So I would say prevention is your best method. On the proactive or on the reactive end, hydrogen peroxide. Number 7, is fall a good time to make hugelkultur beds, or should I wait till spring? I'm not exactly sure where this person is located, but the answer is yes. Fall is a great time to do hugel beds. Primary reason, one, is it just gives time for decomposition, which is what you want. Over the winter months, you want it to be rotting, you want it to be decomposing, you want it to be creating soil. What a great way to let nature run its course. If you're in USDA zones 3 through 8, the snow is just helping that decomposition process. It's keeping it moist, it's keeping the mycorrhizal fungi active. So yeah, I would say fall is a fantastic time to do hugelkultur beds. And if you're wanting to put something on top of them to cover the soil on the hugel beds, hay, straw, grass clippings, leaves, and just let them kind of decompose in place. Number 8, 2 more questions. Number 8 is, what tinctures are you making right now and using this time of year? Actually, yesterday, I just made my last round of Biden's Alba or Spanish needle. Antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, really, really good for going into cold and flu season. That's the one that I'm making right now. I'm getting ready to start making in the next couple months. I'll get into this with ginger and turmeric. The ones that I'm really using a lot this time of year, mullein is really, really good as an expectorant. So it's going to bring up the gunk, help you cough things up if it's a wet cough. Lungwort is a really good one for a dry cough. That's really going to help soothe the lungs and the bronchial system and airways. Dandelion is great, any part of the plant as a tincture going into the winter because it's such a good detoxifier. It's really good to help build minerals, repair the body, repair the liver, repair the kidneys. Really, really good across the board from that. If you're wanting to go into more detail of how do you make tinctures, what's the process for roots, for herbs, for different plants, there is a much longer 45-50 minute class on that in Patreon, so you can go ahead and watch the longer version of that in Patreon. Last question, number 9, should I harvest my ginger and my turmeric yet? If you're in the colder climate zones and you're growing it as an annual and your ginger and turmeric has already died back, no more green, it's all brown, it's crispy, yes, go ahead. For those of us in USDA zones 9 through 11, that doesn't really happen at least for another month, probably 2 months. So just let them go. So they're dying back. I know they look a hot mess. They're yellow. They're starting to turn brown. There's barely any green. What's happening is all of the nutrients from those leaves are going down into the roots, which is what you're gonna harvest. So let them do their thing. So once they turn brown, usually January, even the 1st of February, then you wanna go ahead and dig them up, air dry them for a little while, a couple weeks, and then you can utilize them, store them, dehydrate them, turn them into powders, make them into tinctures, that sort of thing. If you want a longer class, again, on some of my favorite varieties of ginger and turmeric, I think I grow about 12 or 13 now different varieties of gingers and turmerics. They're all very different, both flavor palette wise, colors, how they're used medicinally and herbally. Very, very different uses. There is a whole separate class that goes into a lot of detail. I do a show and tell on that in Patreon. So that is the last question for this month. So regardless of where you are, there's lots of things that you can be doing outside, in the food forest, in the garden, around the homestead. If you want to go more in depth into those areas, the free list, you don't have to sign up for anything. It is free to the public on permaculturefx.com, and just click your growing zone range and that'll bring you to your monthly to-do list. Hopefully those continue to be helpful with you. I would always appreciate it if you share them in your local gardening groups with friends or family who would think that they are helpful. You're welcome to share those. That's always helpful to me. And then as always, make sure that you take time this month for you, for your family, to focus on family, utilizing the things in your food forest that you've labored for over the last couple months. If you made jellies and jams and preserves, dehydrated fruits or vegetables, and put them on your table, enjoy this time of year. If you're in the United States for Thanksgiving, utilize some of those food forest items and let your family know about them. Share the wealth, share the abundance of the food forest. Take them on that journey, send them home with a little jar of jellies or jams or preserves, dried moringa salt, or some of the herbs that you've dehydrated. Be proud of what you've done this growing season, because it has been a doozy of a growing season with flooding in some parts of the country, hurricanes in others, droughts in other areas. What a year. What a year. So be proud of what you have done and what you've accomplished in the garden, and enjoy that time with the family this November. So again, thank you so much to our Patreon community. It's because of your subscription that these videos are possible, both here on YouTube and also on Instagram, on TikTok, and the other, various networks. So if you are just watching this for the first time on YouTube, consider subscribing, consider looking on Instagram or on TikTok to follow along on the journey there. So again, as always, thank you so much. Have fun, and I will see you in the garden.